All right. Well, it looks like it is just about 1 o'clock Mountain Time. So let's get started. Welcome everyone. This is DES 370, Advanced Logo Design, and we are in our second session of our third week. And today is Wednesday, September 20th. And I actually just realized I meant to start my video and I did not. So here I am. Yeah, welcome everyone. Welcome to our third session, our second session of our third week. As we said in yesterday's session, we are officially past the halfway point. So make sure that you are getting into the course. As most of you are, but make sure that you're getting into the course. Make sure that you are also checking the grade book. I know that every mod, I always have students, once the course is finished, that are like, hey, I thought I turned in, assignments, assessments, discussions, whatever, why didn't you give me points? And I'm always like, if it wasn't in the grade book, never arrived in the classroom, so I don't really know, but there's nothing I can do now. And then it gets kind of into a not pleasant situation. So I would encourage you all, if you're watching this, to just kind of make a mental note, check the grade book, make sure that everything is showing up that you think should be showing up. And then B, make sure that you have grades for everything. And if you did something like a resubmission, make sure that I saw it and that I also graded it. I'm pretty good with that, but I'm not perfect. So just make sure that everything is in there as you think it should be, as it looks good, all that kind of stuff. So welcome. Looks like we just have another student who showed up. Excellent. Good to have you here. But yeah, so I was just saying, check the grade book, make sure that you're good with everything. Make sure that, just stuff is showing up that should be there. Because as we head into this week, especially the end of this week, then we have week 4. And week 4, as you all know, since you've been around for a while, goes very, very, very quick. So you want to do everything in your power to kind of load up week 3 in ways that make week 4 a breeze, as opposed to kind of taking a breather in week 3 and then having week 4 kind of come and get you. So little PSA there, good things to kind of be aware of. All right, well, I think I'm going to shut off the camera. But as usual, good to see everybody. And as usual, also, if anything that I said, you're like, that's me, I looked and you haven't graded, what I resubmitted, just let me know, send me an email. I'm very open to lots of emails. I'm very open to lots of reminders since things do pick up quite a bit for me. So if you are not seeing something, it's probably not because I'm consciously ignoring it. It's more like it just other things have piled up in front of it, so I kind of forgot. So gentle nudges, gentle reminders, always appreciated. Okay, so we are going to stop the video and jump into the session. So here is our agenda for today. We're going to talk very much about Illustrator, as you can see here, because we are going to really be focused on assignment 3 in this session. So we're going to start with drawing in Illustrator, then we're going to talk about creating things that interlock, then we're going to talk about creating symbols, and then we're going to talk about patterning. And actually patterning and symbols kind of going to be similar, so those are going to be kind of interwoven together. Something about this session that's going to be slightly different than previous ones that we've had, mainly previous ones that we've had where I've just basically talked for 2 hours, is we're going to try having slightly more of like a workshop-ish format. So because we're going to be in the software so much, I'm basically going to describe a tool to you. I'm going to do a demo of a tool for you. And for many of you, this may be review, or this may be something new. So wherever you kind of fall in that spectrum, I'm going to then give you all a little bit of time and it's going to be recorded, so it's all going to be worked into the session, to just kind of open Illustrator, play with it, see if you have any questions, and then we're going to kind of jump back and get into things. So it's going to be a little less, strict lecture, a little bit more kind of workshop. And the thinking behind this is that if I just tell you a bunch of stuff about the software, about these tools, kind of about how they work, and if I just do demos, it's going to be very easy, if you all are anything like me, which I think is just a human thing, to just listen and be like, okay, I got it. Okay, I got it. Okay, looks good, sounds good. Okay. And then you go and you open up Illustrator and you're like, how the heck do I do that? So what I'm hoping, and this is very experimental, so this could just completely crash and burn. We don't know. Well, I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't. But yes, what I'm hoping is that by kind of consciously giving you space to stop, well, to not have to listen to me chatter, but to open up Illustrator, to actually replicate or just click on the tools or just do a little something within the context of our session. Hopefully that's going to kind of bake these ideas into you a bit more. You can kind of get your fingers involved, get some muscle memory in there, all that good stuff. And then when you go to actually try these things on your own in the context of the assignment, hopefully it will kind of come back to you as well. So we'll see how it goes. Like I said, no promises, but if anything, maybe it'll be a little bit more fun because you you don't just have to listen to me. You can listen to me and then kind of do some stuff on your own. So if you're watching via video and you're like, well, I'm just going to fast forward whenever she does any of that stuff, your choice. You're the one who's in control of how quickly the video plays. But I would encourage you to just take time and explore some of these tools. I think that there's a pretty big kind of temptation when you're a student to, and because you're smart, to figure out kind of the easiest, quickest way you can accomplish an assignment or an assessment or whatever, just because it's good time management. That is great time management, but it's not really all that great for just being a creative, because a lot of what we learn, a lot of when the good ideas come, are not when we're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to think so hard about this and come up with an idea. It's more like when we're in kind of a relaxed, playful state. So hopefully in these kind of little interludes that we have built in, you guys can, be a little bit playful, be a little bit exploratory, and just have fun, because who doesn't need to have a little bit of fun, like between us being in week 3 and just the state of the world. I think we could use all a little relaxed time. So hopefully that will come from this as well. So drawing in Illustrator, interlocking symbols, patterning, all the good stuff. But before we do that, we are going to use our brains, and I am going to talk for a while. So just a recap, learning objectives for this week. Discuss 2 communication techniques to manage client relationships during a rebrand. Number 2, apply 2 advanced techniques to enable a logo to work and remain recognizable across multidimensional applications. And number 3, define how the relationship between symbols and meanings are shown within a logo design case study. All right, so that's discussion, assignment, assessment. Super easy, theoretically. Super easy to read. Hopefully not too difficult to actually do. Okay, and then also just a bit of review, since that's always a good thing to just keep these ideas locked in our minds. This is probably something that you're like, yeah, we get this now. Hopefully. So what is a logo? We came up with this definition way back in week 1. We have a logo is a word, a symbol, or a picture, or a mashup of the 2. And a logo really is the face of the company. So just as our faces kind of show off who we are, the logo too shows off who the company is. Really serves to kind of differentiate it from other companies, other ones out there. In yesterday's session, we talked about logo type and logo mark. So this is kind of a pop quiz for the students who are here live, here attending, participating as this video is being recorded. So the word mark that we created for weeks 1 and weeks 2, does that tend to fall under the heading of a logo type or a logo mark? And for those of you who are playing along from home watching the video, you too can participate. Just think for a second. We talked about logo types, we talked about logo marks in yesterday's session. What's a word mark? What category does that fall into? Perhaps not as cut and dry as you think. I'll give you guys just a couple seconds to think about that. Is it a logo type or is it a logo mark? Okay, it looks like the chat box students are weighing in that it is a logo type. And it's kind of fun because it's a word mark, and word sounds a lot like type, word mark obviously sounds a lot like mark. But yeah, so they're weighing in that it is a logo type, and they would be correct. So a word mark is a logo type. Confused yet? Hey? But yeah, so a logo type refers to words or the name of a business that is designed in a special way. So AKA, if I can click on it, word mark. So in yesterday's session too, we said that if you're thinking, Lisa, why are we going over these terms? Like, this is just confusing and feels like a little bit of a murky thing we're diving into. Basically, there are many terms that people will use to describe things in design. And I just want to give you guys a pretty broad exposure to things, to language that you may encounter when you're working, because I would hate for someone to be talking and be like, yeah, I really want you to design me a logo mark, and, keeping on going, and you're like, okay, and then you're thinking like, what's a logo mark? So hopefully at least, just kind of being exposed to this a little bit will kind of just lodge into your brains a bit and just help you kind of sort through what everything is. Design is wonderful in so many ways, but it's also so confusing because people just make up, terms and things, and people use certain terms, and there's not a ton of commonality sometimes. So just kind of being aware of what's out there is kind of half the battle. So these are some different logo types. I'll probably say the wrong thing, but different logo types. So all text, and a bit like what you guys created for weeks 1 and 2. Then we have a logo mark, and a logo mark is an identifying mark or symbol that doesn't contain the business name. So symbol is the key kind of word with that. So here are a couple examples of famous-y ones that you can see. And you guys are going to be creating something of your own for to go along with the word mark that you created for weeks 1 and 2. So logo marks are more abstract than their logo type brethren, as they are symbols and they don't necessarily quote unquote sit next to the brand name. So they really try to kind of capture something about the brand, about the company name. What that might be is kind of up to the designer and also up to the client. So you guys get to kind of figure out what a good symbol, what a good mark might be for the logo that you've created. So a couple things logo marks do: enhance brand identity, help identify the company, help understand the company, and overall really extend the brand. So it just becomes another symbol of what the brand is, of what the company is. And it just, helps to just kind of make it even more accessible. Okay, so how do we make it work? We think about things that are unique. We think about things that have some meaning behind them, so they're tied to some sort of history, story, backstory, what have you. And we did say that for you guys, you have both the blessing and the curse of getting to dream up the backstory of your client. So you can kind of come up with whatever you want to, which is kind of cool, but also you have to come up with whatever you want to, so double edge there. So meaning memorable, that kind of ties in with unique, and then flexible, which means that it can appear in a variety of different places and formats and still remain very recognizable for what it is. So unique, meaningful, memorable, and flexible. All right, so how do you do this? You use Illustrator now. How you do this, first you brainstorm ideas. So you think, okay, my company is called Steep. You know, what would be a good idea of a symbol? Maybe a teapot, maybe a teacup, maybe a swirl. You know, what could it be? And this is where it's important to just get any and every idea out, because the obvious ones are probably like teacup, for wag time, probably a paw print. But if you keep on going, like what else could you get to? How else could you kind of push those ideas? So brainstorm ideas first, check the inspiration second. So hop into Pinterest and just see, you know, what are if you do a Pinterest search on paw prints, you know, what's going to come up, even a Google search, just to kind of see how people are interpreting these ideas, how they're representing them. Remember, we don't do visual inspiration because we want to copy directly, but we do visual inspiration because we want to just see what's out there, see what's available, and then see how we can give that kind of a unique spin, a unique twist, and kind of put our own stamp on it. So check the inspiration, number 2. Number 3, create using geometry. And number 4, think simple. So really think about, because this symbol is going to be flexible, you want to make sure that you are creating something that can be resized, can show up in print, can show up on screen, can show up in a variety of places and still remain easy to see and understand. So you really want to not do anything with a lot of detail. So simple is much, much better. Okay, so that pretty much takes us to the end of the review session. So I'm a little bit curious, for those of you who are here, and then also for those of you who are watching online, have you guys thought of any ideas yet for your symbol, what that might be? Anything like that? Or are you still kind of mulling it over? I think it's kind of tricky because I think for me, even as I was, and you can feel free to type as I'm talking, for me, even as I was kind of preparing this presentation and like thinking of or practicing demos and things, I was thinking like, oh man, what would I do? Like, I don't know. And then I said, well, obviously, if I don't know because I haven't brainstormed, I haven't checked the inspiration, you know, I haven't done those early phases in design process. I think as designers, we always me as a designer, I always secretly hope that there's going to be like the magical flash of inspiration. Like, of course, I'm doing, you know, my company is this, so I'm going to do this. And never happens. So disappointing. Things only happen when I'm working. So those magical flashes, I still believe in them, but at some point maybe I'll have one. Okay, so if you are, you know, kind of feeling like I don't even know where to start, start with brainstorming. Start small. Start making a list of what, you know, you could possibly do, and, you know, go on Pinterest and see what's there. Do a Google search, see what's there, and you know, it's these tiny, unglamorous steps oftentimes that build a design project. Okay, so here's the assignment that we are at. I won't read this background all to you, but I would say take the time to read it because it's good information about symbols. It kind of gives you the why behind symbols. And the cool thing, I think, symbols do not require you to read letters or decode words, yet because of that, they are a highly efficient way to represent things. So cool. And symbols are immediate and intuitive, highly abstracted, so, and universally tied, or I'm sorry, universally recognized. So not really tied specifically to a language, which is kind of an issue with word marks. But yeah, and then symbols can often come together to form patterns. So patterns occur when symbols are interlocked, repeated in a measured manner, or both. Repeated patterns created from interlocking symbols can be used together with the logo as an additional supporting elements, packaging, applied across things, etc., etc. So kind of the idea for this assignment is that you are going to create one symbol to accompany your wordmark logo, and then take the symbol and turn it into a pattern. And basically, if you've forgotten, which I think I've forgotten many times over the course of the mod, kind of what we're building toward are these subscription boxes. And so the idea with this symbol that you're creating and then this pattern is that the patterning is going to be used probably somewhere on the box, or the patterning is going to be used somewhere in the tissue paper, packaging, background on something. So there's lots of sneaky places you can put patterning in, and just having the presence of the pattern is like a really good reminder of the brand itself, of the company. It just kind of another, like, kind of reinforces it as well. So you're going to create a symbol, and then you're also going to create a symbol. This is where it's going to get a little fun and a little tricky. So you're going to create a symbol. You're going to create a symbol, hopefully, that has some ability to be interlocked. So basically what interlocked means is interlocked together. No, it's like links in a chain type thing. And it's going to be a slightly more complex shape. And then you're going to take whatever you've created that's been interlocked and turn it into a pattern. And then you're going to turn in both the single symbol, the symbol interlocked, and then the symbol shown as a pattern on a panel. So three different things. And this too might kind of influence what it is you're creating. When you interlock things, it's there's enough couple things you have to think about as far as design decisions, which we'll kind of get into. But it does, there's some shapes that lend themselves to interlocking much easier than others. So just, something to kind of think about. All right, so you're going to put each of the elements on their own artboard. Native Illustrator file should have 3 artboards. And then you're going to save it as a PDF, and it will be good. Okay, so big takeaways. Symbol created that goes along with your word mark. A symbol, kind of then the symbol itself, and then like 2 symbols somehow connected in some sort of interlocking fashion. And I'm willing to be fairly flexible on what interlocking actually means, but it is, as long as they're kind of together in some sense. And then the symbols turned into a pattern and then shown on a panel itself. Okay, so let's jump into Illustrator and get this software party started. So I thought what we would do, just to kind of set some kind of parameters and such with this, is I thought that I'd give you 3 different ways to potentially create things in Illustrator. And these are kind of new-ish tools. And so if you haven't been really consciously updating your skills in Illustrator and such since you took, kind of your beginning courses, these might be new to you. Or if you have been and you're like, you've been around the block as far as Illustrator is concerned, these might just be good kind of refreshers. So we're going to talk about the Shaper tool. We're going to talk about live shapes. We're going to talk about the pencil tool and how that works. And then we're going to move into the idea of how to create an interlocking shape. And I'm going to do kind of a basic demo on that. And then we're going to move into the idea of pattern making and we're again going to do a refresh on the pattern making feature within Illustrator. And like I said before, we are going to take some probably about 5-ish minute breaks. And I would encourage you guys, if you can, to open up your Illustrator and just try what I've shown you, or just, click on the tools and scribble a little bit, and just see, do you get it? Do you have any questions? If you have questions, what are they? Let me know. And I can try to, kind of work with you guys one-to-one and, walk you through if you need anything. So. All right, so what we're going to do first is open up Illustrator because I do not have my Illustrator open as of yet, but I'm going to take just a bit to do its thing. Okay, it looks like Illustrator's almost opening. Yay! Okay, so I'm going to move some boxes around. So I'm kind of curious for you guys who are here in class. What's your Illustrator kind of? I was gonna say your Illustrator IQ, but I don't know if that's quite the way I want to say it. But yeah, what's kind of your Illustrator comfort level? Do you feel like you use it a lot? You know its functionality, you know its capabilities? Excuse me, or do you feel like you kind of don't use it as much? It's kind of one of those things that you do every once in a while and then don't use it for a while. I will say that mostly, well, I'm kind of back and forth. For a lot of client work, I generally do InDesign, and I come into Illustrator, like I dip my toe into Illustrator just to do kind of some vector drawing and things, vector illustration. But as far as working in it, I don't really work in Illustrator all that much. But do you guys tend to turn to it a bit more, or okay, I use it a good amount? Oh, good, this will all be review for you then. Maybe. Yeah, and it's always fun, I think, to see, oh yeah, like that is a thing. I forgot about that. So sounds good. Okay, so what we're gonna talk about first is we're gonna do actually a little different than the outline that I did, but that's okay. We're gonna talk about live shapes, kind of live shape manipulation. And then we're going to talk about the pencil tool, and then we're probably going to take our little 5 minutes of open up Illustrator and just kind of play around and see that kind of thing. So everybody knows that we have the shape tool here, which is a good thing. And I'm going to turn it a color, so we're kind of working with it. But what you may or may not know is that the Illustrator, kind of the default now, is to have live shapes. And basically what that means is you can edit different features, different functions of the shape just by kind of clicking and dragging on different parts of what's going on. So you have these little circles here, so you can round edges if you want to. So it's kind of cool if you want to go from a plain square to something with a little bit more of a rounded edge or a softer side. Super easy to do just by clicking and dragging on these little kind of little circle-y things, so corner drag. And then another cool thing is if you want to just change one corner, you're going to use your direct selection tool and click on it and just change one. Oops. Wouldn't it be great if it actually worked to just change one and not all of them? It does. This is why I sometimes don't enjoy software demos, because the demo always chooses when everybody's watching to not work. But there you have it. So you just can go in and choose one. So this is kind of fun. This is with the rectangle. And the other thing too is that if you get your transform panel open, which is down here, and transform, is this is going to give you another targeted look at your shape itself. And so if you wanted to just, transform one corner, unlink the corner radius, you can change a corner type, turn it up, so kind of cool. If you want this guy to be something else, this guy to be chamfered, you can do that. So you really have a ton of customization within these shapes within Illustrator. And I mean, you could draw this shape, like using the pen tool or whatever, but it's so much easier in a lot of ways to do this because Illustrator then does it for you, and you can really, see what's going to be there or not. So kind of move for it. So that's live shape with a rectangle. So you can really get in and change up the corners, so rounded and such. So if you were making something that was, say, more like a coffee cup type deal, or I guess I shouldn't say coffee, I should say tea, you could have your rectangle. You could think, all right, what's my corner going to look like? Maybe I want it to be rounded. Oops, let me unlink these. Maybe I want it to be rounded. I guess maybe that would be the bottom. That would be a rounded corner, but you guys get the picture. So you could have two rounded corners, and this one's 0.75. So I'll put this guy here. 0.75. Let's rotate it so we can see it. So you can really start, building something that's customized, and then see what, see what you want to do, kind of where you want to go from there. So rectangle, cool stuff. Next one that also has some cool features is the polygon and its live shape transformation properties. So drag out a polygon, and let's make it so it's a little bit more up and down. So kind of a cool thing, again, you can pull corners if you want to, so it gets a little bit more kind of rounded. And then another cool thing about the polygon is that you'll see, I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's this little, it's like I guess it's like a diamond, and it's near, here it's on the bottom corner, sometimes it's on the side, it's always on a corner. And basically what this does, if you hover over it, it has a plus and a minus. And so if you drag it, it actually will take away sides, or if you drag it this way, it'll actually add sides to your polygon. And it's kind of cool because you can adjust as you're working the size of your shape. So if you're making something and you suddenly say, this actually doesn't have the right amount of sides, I kind of want it to be a triangle. Rather than deleting what it is, you can just drag the slider, and that's going to reshape what's showing up. So you can also do it in the transform properties or polygon properties in the transform panel. So that's kind of a cool thing too. And again, you can see that I have the corner type that is rounded, but you can change that as well. If you want to make it, if you want to make it even more, add some sides, subtract some sides. It's really, these are really cool kind of like abstract-y shapes. And because symbols tend to work well when they go a little bit abstract, this is a great way to kind of create them and just, play around with that as well. So we have this little slider on the polygon. Then we also have the polygon properties. This is a little bit easier to see. So that's, another kind of interesting thing to try. So corners, always. With the polygon, the added bonus is you get to add or subtract sides as you want to, which is kind of cool. And last but not least, we're going to go with the ellipse. And the cool thing about the ellipse is this little guy here, which actually is a pie slice. And you can create, you know, kind of your own pie charts-ish things just using this tool. So you can see I click here, and then I'm just setting whatever the angle is, the pie angle. And then we're gonna do it maybe right about here and let go, and it gets rid of the wedge. So if you want to make some sort of like Pac-Man-ish type thing, this would be a great way to do it. This kind of looks like a large wedge of cheese or something. I don't even really know what, but it's kind of a cool symbol, kind of a cool shape. And you could do some really interesting stuff with it in the context of an illustration, certainly in the context of a pattern or something like that. So we've got our cheese. You can always, you know, set the starting and ending points just by these little, well, I should say we have our pie, not our cheese, just by these little circles. The other cool thing is you can click this invert. So right now we have all the outside with a slice taken out. If I just click this little invert, we'll have the slice as opposed to the full. And something you can do that's really cool is if you take this, let me zoom out just a little bit, take this, copy, paste, and then invert, you'll see you have the slice, and then you can kind of bring it, you know, out if you want to or whatever. And again, I was thinking actually about all of the Wagtime logos that we have, and, you know, tennis ball-ish things seem like they could be a good symbol usage. And so this is kind of a fun way that you could make something that feels like kind of an abstracted tennis ball in a lot of ways. So kind of a cool, yeah, kind of a cool thing. I don't know, maybe a fan. Yeah, so there's just some possibility, and I think that it pays to just know the capabilities of these tools so that you can, you know, play a little bit with them and see exactly what you think as far as what you have. So this is if you want to change the height, change the width, anything like that. But yeah, the live feature in the ellipse, I think, really is this kind of slice capability because you just have so much. You just have so much potential of what you can show, how you can move it around. You know, again, you can create these wedges however you want to, but just having the software kind of do it for you is just a really cool thing, because then you don't have to do it yourself. So you can create some interesting elements. Okay, so just to recap, so with Rectangle, kind of the cool live shape feature thing to try is just working with the corners and seeing how you can kind of change, create, customize, just play with the corner shapes themselves. Then the polygon, kind of the cool, noteworthy, according to Lisa, feature is that you can change the number of sides as you are working in the software. So you can add, increase, decrease, and then you can also change the corners. And then with the circle, the ellipse, the cool thing is this kind of pie feature that you can take out chunks, you can fragment it, and then you really have a customized sense of what's going to be there. You can always, you know, revise it if you suddenly feel like it's not working. So you can kind of work in a good way. So I think with live shapes in general in Illustrator, they just help you create in a way that's a lot more kind of like clean photo editing in Photoshop. So in Photoshop, we always talk very much about how important it is not to erase things, not to get dirty in your image manipulation. Whereas in Illustrator, we kind of just get rid of things, you know, willy-nilly. But now that we have these live shape features, you can really kind of play with and kind of enjoy these different parts and see how you can make something that really is, you know, kind of interesting and extremely abstract, but kind of cool at the same time. So just really, it's fun to play with, especially with colors. Okay, so that is live shapes. Um, so I'm curious for you guys that are here, is live shapes something, have you utilized these features before, or is this something that you're like, oh yeah, I do kind of remember that, or you're like, yeah, live shapes, easy, easy type thing. This to me is looking like orange segments and like a fan, but okay, not so much. Yeah, I mean, just something to play around with, because it is kind of a tool in your, it's a tool in your arsenal, and you know, use it if it's a tool. The software does it anyway, so you know, it can just make our lives easier, and it's something cool that, um, you know, you may never have thought that it was an option. So it just kind of gives you some more creative ideas as far as what, you know, you might be able to do with something. Okay, so next thing we're going to look at is the pencil tool. And I know that when I've taught Illustrator before, especially to beginning students, everybody has such high hopes that the pencil tool will be essentially like drawing with a pencil, but it'll show up on the computer. And it never used to be that way. It's always the pen tool that we have to learn and do anchor points and curves and all that kind of thing. So it's still not really the equivalent of drawing with a pencil, because unless you have, if you have a stylus, then maybe a little bit, but it's still not quite the same as a pencil. But the pencil tool in Illustrator has gotten better. And yeah, so we're going to look at a couple of its features, because again, for some of you, if you want to draw something that's, yeah, if you're just into drawing, it's a good thing to know how to use and just kind of know what the updates have been. So you're going to double click first on the pencil tool. And what that does is it opens up this dialog box that's called the pencil tool options. And kind of the main thing we're going to look at here is this thing at the top that says fidelity. And what this sets is how many anchor points you're going to have when your pencil draws a line. So if you want it to be extremely accurate, you're going to have a lot of anchor points. So you can think of it kind of like when you're using the magnetic lasso tool or something. It's going to put lots of little anchor points because it wants to give you a line that's very easy to manipulate. Whereas if you go to smooth, it's only going to give you like 3 or 4 anchor points, and it's going to have a lot smoother of curves. So accurate means lots of little dots, and then smooth means not many dots. So we're going to start first by just drawing a line with accurate, so you can kind of see the difference. So I'm going to change my color to something that we will see. I'll make it kind of thick. So here's, what should I draw? I'll draw a little stick person. So you can see, because it was inaccurate. Whoops. Let's get to, there it is. Because it was inaccurate, I have anchor points pretty much everywhere. And so it's because the pencil tool is laying down all these different points, because it wants me to have the option of now going back and adjusting curves, adjusting angles, adjusting kind of where things are placed, all of that. So you can see handles. So this, you know, at times you may want to have this level of kind of the ability to go back in. But other times, let's get that out. Other times, and Dara would say most times, you probably want it to be a lot less, kind of a lot less filled with anchor points, a lot less bumpy, and just a lot more smooth overall. So here's, you can see when I change the settings to smooth, how that really decreased the number of anchor points. So let's get into, yes, you can see here I have, you know, just a small number, whereas here, well, you can't really see because it's red, but maybe if we make it a different color, let's make it yellow. Could you see those more? Yeah, this is why you guys you guys will try this yourself as well, because when you try to do it, okay, there are a lot more of them, and then you come over here and you realize that it's just a lot less. So tracing things becomes a lot easier. So for example, with this whole symbol project, if you decide you want to do something like if you're with Brooks and Emma and you want to do like the shape of a bird, and if you have a picture of a bird, what you can do with the pencil tool now is almost like, I'm just going to freehand a bird, but you can almost just draw it, trace it with the pencil tool. It's going to drop all the anchor points there for you, and it just becomes a lot easier to work with. So I feel like the pencil tool now really works like how we all wish the pen tool would work. It's a lot more fluid and smooth, and it's definitely something worth checking out if you haven't looked at it, if you haven't used it in a long time. So one other cool thing about the pencil tool is if you guys see here, you probably don't see because it's very close, but I don't quite have a closed shape here, even though I have lines that kind of overlap. So it's not really a quite closed shape. But what you can do with the pencil tool is one of the things that's here is called the join tool. So it's right here, so join. And once you click on it, you can just click and drag. You're kind of essentially drawing a line, and it connects lines together, and it closes your shape for you. So if you're tracing something and it's just difficult to get that like overlap where the two things really connect, you can just go through and use the join tool, and you just have to make sure your shape is selected. But shape is selected, draw, and it joins, and things kind of come together. So if your shape isn't selected, nothing happens. Actually, I don't even know if this is something that could be joined, but we'll see. Kind of fun to try. Yeah, no, that wouldn't work. So yeah, so the join tool is kind of cool. So you can kind of draw a little something. Go through, join, click, drag, and it becomes kind of a shape in itself. So cool things about the pencil tool to rediscover, or perhaps discover for the first time, is just double click on it, and the pencil tool option shows up, and then you can smooth or accurate if you want a lot of anchor points, or somewhere in the middle, I think is where the default goes. But yeah, you can just try tracing something, and I would say it's definitely worth it, because there's a lot of people that I feel like don't like Illustrator because they don't feel confident in kind of their drawing skills. But with this new pencil tool, well, I say newish pencil tool, you kind of don't need a ton of really accurate drawing skills. The software is really there to help you, and it's just kind of a fun thing to try and see what you might come up with. Oh, one other thing I wanted to see, or to tell you, which I just saw in my notes, is when I have to get rid of my small duck, even though I think it was a pretty cute little bird. When you have the pencil tool, if you click and drag and hold down Shift, what you're going to get is, let's do that again. So click, drag, hold down Shift. What you're going to get is a straight line, and you can have it at 90 degrees, 45, or essentially 90. So you can get all these kind of curve things. So this is really nice if you want just like a good straight line. And then if you want to build on that, if you just hover over a corner, you can see that your the shape next to your pencil turns from like a little star to like a straight line. So you can build a shape, and you can draw something curvy. And then when you hover over again, you can hold down Shift, you can draw straight, and it puts it there. And then you can draw, curvy if you want to. Hold down Shift, straight, and goes up again. So it's really easy to alternate between curvy shapes and straight shapes. And also, one more thing if this isn't enough. Also, if you hold down your Alt key or your Option key, you can draw a straight line and it's not constrained by angle. So if you want to just like draw a bunch of, straights and then draw a curvy and then draw a straight, that's an option as well. So this is especially good if you're going to do, something kind of boxy, because you can just cover spaces with a straight line. And in theory, it's just like the pen tool in that you click and you set a point and then you click and you set a line, but it's just so much easier to operate because it doesn't have that kind of finickiness that the pen tool has. So it's kind of a cool thing. And then come back over here. We can close our shape. So it becomes a thing if you want it to. So lots of cool stuff. So that is the pencil tool. So big takeaways, double click on it, see the pencil tool options with the fidelity and things, and then also try, the difference between drawing a wiggly line and doing a join, or using either the Shift key to do a straight line, the Alt key to do a straight line, just kind of see how you can kind of connect, how you can build, and how it can kind of, you can essentially go back and forth with whatever it is you're doing. So pretty cool in how these things kind of work and come together. And actually, I really like this shape. That was a good, fun one that I created. Okay, so as I said, kind of the vision of this is that I just demoed two different things, so live shapes as well as the pencil tool. So what I'm going to do now is give you guys about 5 to 6 minutes to open up your Illustrator and to just try, either working with some live shapes or working with the pencil or both, and just kind of see if you get it. If something feels weird, something's not working, whatever, then you can, either tell me if you are here, or just send me an email and be like, hey, I couldn't get this thing to work. And then we can kind of, get together and see how we can do it. Let's see. I like the pencil tool better than the pen tool. I know, it's so friendly, isn't it? I know I like the pencil tool better than the pen tool. And I was like a pen tool fanatic. So, okay, so I'm going to go quiet. But if you are here and you have any questions, you can feel free to just type it because I'll still be here. I'm not going to be talking. So yeah, so 5-ish minutes. And if you're watching the video, please do this. It will be fun. This is like playtime. It doesn't matter what you create. You just get to explore and, all in the context of learning. Okay, all right. See you guys in a little bit. Okay, so playtime is done. But yeah, so hopefully you guys got a chance to try out the live shape features, live shape functionality, use the pencil tool a little bit, see how it works, see the different parts of it. And yeah, hopefully this just gave you a little bit of insight into different parts of Illustrator that you may or may not have used in a while, you may or may not have remembered really kind of exists, and just giving you some, yeah, giving you some options, some more ways to create and such, and fun. That's I'm very hopeful that we can have fun with this, because I really think that, yeah, if you can create in a way where you're having fun, it just makes your creating so much better. Okay, so we're going to move on. So we did shape tools, we did pencil tool. Now we are going to, well, actually, let me ask the students who are here instead of just chattering on. So do you guys, I know we have one fan of the pencil tool as opposed to the pen tool. Did you play around with it a little bit in Illustrator, you guys, and see any other new things? Enjoy it? Hopefully you're not on mobile devices, in which case this would not be something that works, but next time around maybe. But yeah, what's the thought? Or are you still playing and you're like, Lisa, your background at this point, which would totally be how I would be if I was a student. I'm just listening, but okay, I played with it a bit. Sweet, very cool. All right, so we're going to talk next about the Shaper tool. And the Shaper tool is under the pencil tool as well. So basically the Shaper tool is, it's known as gesture based. And so what it does is you kind of draw stuff, well, particularly you draw shapes, and then Illustrator recognizes what they are, and then turns them into actually that shape. And it works with a surprising number of drawn shapes. You can do ovals, you can do ellipses, you can do circles, you can do squares, rectangles. I don't know if I would know what that is. Yeah. I was trying to do some sort of polygon and then lost track of my sides. So at some point it turns it all into a circle. But the cool thing about this is that every complex shape generally can be broken down to simple shapes. So, let's get rid of all these guys. So like when you're in kindergarten or something and you do your house, it's like a triangle and a rectangle, or a tree, is like a circle and a rectangle. So these are, of course, very generic and not really that exacting as far as what they are. But the idea is that if you have a complex object and you can break it down into many simple shapes, it just gives you, with the Shaper tool, a place to start, and kind of just an interesting thing to play with and just explore. So you can do this cool stuff where you draw something and then it turns into something else. Cool thing about the Shaper tool is also with gestures, you can actually get rid of bits and pieces that you've drawn or merge bits and pieces that you've drawn. So let's say I want to actually get rid of the overlap of this triangle and ellipse. So if I just scribble on it and let go, it's gone. That's so cool. Or if I want to merge something, so if I want to scribble over these two, suddenly it merges them together. So if I want to do that, suddenly now we have a triangle and a circle, and they're essentially a single shape, and you can kind of move them over. And the other cool thing too is that they still retain their own shape properties. So looky here, we have the live shape, so we can turn it into, other things if we want to. And this thing too will still retain its properties. So we could create some pie in here if we wanted to. And then get out of isolation mode, get back into shaper mode, and suddenly we have something that's a cool shape. So, and yet it's still in here, so you can still, if you want to, double click and change different elements of it. So let's say we want to change the color of this. Want to change the color of this guy in here. We change it to blue. Change what we have. Why you would change it to that, I don't know, but but it's just a really cool, kind of fun thing to put together different complex shapes in some interesting ways. So let's do something that's a little bit more exciting. So it's probably going to turn into that. Turn into this. And so what we want to do is merge these together so we can have an arrow. So we're just going to scribble over it, and oh, look at that, we have a house. Easy, all kind of brought together. If we want to put a circle in there, let's draw, oops, a circle. And the circle then becomes almost like a cutout over our piece. And then if we select everything, reminds you of an arrow. Yeah, it's kind of cool. And then scribble through, move it around. We can do that as well. So it's a cool thing. And it's another cool thing to just try drawing with it and see what it creates and see how it, just see how it works. So scribble over, so that got taken out. So we can select this. So this arrow allows you to get into either of your individual shapes if you want to kind of further manipulate them, change them in some way. Like kind of move it around, move your placement, whatever. And the cool thing is that it still has the outline. So it's still a merged shape. And you can still kind of work with it in different ways as you want to. So down arrow lets you work with them individually. Up arrow brings them back into what they are. So you can then do this. Move this guy around if you want to. And then add a circle to it, or a square, whatever it thought it was going to be. Bring that through. So again, it's just an interesting way. It looks like a birdhouse. Yeah, it kind of does look like a birdhouse. But yeah, so I mean, just another interesting way to build different shapes. So there is in Illustrator the Pathfinder tool that we're going to talk about when we talk about interlocking shapes. But this again is another, this is a way to merge shapes or to even subtract shapes with kind of a interesting combination of stuff. So look at, I just erased in the rectangle, and then it got rid of the parts that were overlapping in each of those things. So if I guess I have nothing left to erase here. If I merge these together again, it's going to go back in. If I merge these together again, it's going to go back in. So if you think of, something that you might want to do, or even something that's kind of an abstract shape, maybe you want to do something that's created using the Shaper tool, or maybe you just want to practice making something with the Shaper tool because it's just really fun. It's fun to draw something, and then to have Illustrator know exactly, what it might be that you want to make. So it recognizes that out. So I'm just clicking, dragging, and scribbling, and that's what That's what creates the, either erases the piece or adds the piece to the, if you kind of cross a border, then it's going to add it into the part. And then if you want to move it around, use your arrow, and then you can kind of hover it through. This kind of looks like I'm making a person. It's like a snow angel. If I zip that out, what would happen? Yeah. So it's kind of fun. Actually, it's extremely fun. So again, we're going to take a little bit of time to work with this. And when you double click on it, then you can change the color of just that section. And then double click. Oops. Oh, where did you go? Section. There it is. Again, it takes a bit of play, perhaps more than a bit. But yeah, I mean, you can just create kind of crazy stuff, and I don't know what this would be, but I kind of like it at the same time. It's like a little piece of abstracted art. And for symbols, again, if you're like, well, if you don't know what it's supposed to be and you're what's going on here, when you're making symbols, especially when they are symbols that are perhaps not for something as literal, you know, if you want to make it more abstract, it tends to work in a lot of different places. So that's kind of a cool thing too. And you can see the circle is staying there. So what, you know, how could we kind of pull and drag this to make something different and to make something interesting? Oops, that's what I wanted to get. So again, kind of fun stuff as far as what you can do with this. So important things to remember with the shaper is that it's not, this is the regular shape. The shaper is underneath, and the shaper is also connected with a pencil. So it's the top pencil. So if you're drawing, you know, this and you start doing that, it's going to just draw a shape for you. But the benefit of this is that you can kind of combine and edit and kind of clip and manipulate your shapes just with the gesture base, so with the scribble. So either scribble to combine two things together or scribble to separate two things out, and it, you know, may or may not work a bit easier. So I'm now back to the coffee cup idea. And scribble, oops, scribble the wrong direction. Scribble to get it up. And put that in here. Scribble to get rid of that. Combine those. And easy, look at that. It's just like a coffee cup. A coffee cup was made in about 3 seconds of, well, a little bit more than that, but less than a minute. And then you can always, you know, go back in and perfect these guys as you should. But kind of a cool thing. Always good too when you go back in to manipulate, know that your gut reaction, well, my gut reaction is to use the selection tool. It actually works better if you use the shaper tool, because then you have control over the shapes themselves. So then it works. Looks like the silhouette of a coffee cup. Yeah, I know. Steep tea. Sometimes the demo works. Sometimes it doesn't, but when it does, it's always a good feeling. Or it kind of looks like an ear a little bit. So this is a shape. It reads like a shape. It flows like a shape. It feels like a shape, I think. Yep. So lots of interesting stuff. Okay, so just like we did with the other tools, we're going to take probably about 5-6 minutes, and I would encourage you guys to open up or go back to your Illustrator again, and then take the shaper tool and just try combining shapes, try excluding shapes. So kind of like I did here, where I scribbled to erase something. And then also see if you can try just this thing where you push the arrow and then you kind of manipulate the, oops. The shaper tool doesn't understand your gesture. Oh. Try to manipulate your shapes and just see, you know, what's going on there, and like how those pieces kind of fit together, how they work, and just kind of get used to the gesture and the ideas and such. So we're going to take, yeah, like 5 or 6 more minutes, play around, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about creating things that interlock and what that whole concept is like. So have fun shapering. Okay, so I think we are done with, well, not done, but we'll bring that exploration to a close. So yeah, so the Shaper tool, hopefully that too is a fun one to play with, and you never know how it might help you in building building kind of a complex shape for your uh, symbol that you know are going to be doing for this week. So play around with it. It takes a little learning curve, knowing how to scribble out the right parts and how to kind of manipulate and maneuver through the different shapes. But once you get it, it's a super powerful tool, and it really does let you customize the shapes that you're the shapes that you're making, and kind of how it all comes together. So worth some playing for sure. All right, so we're going to now talk about how to create an interlock shape, to see what the intricacies are with that. And then we're also going to talk about creating patterns. So we're going to do a bit of a refresh on the pattern tool. So interlock basically means like the Olympic rings, I think, is like the the default example that everybody shows. And I think even in our course media for this week, that's kind of what the example is, if you've seen it. And you should see it, because it's a good good way to learn. But yeah, so anyway, we're going to talk about that as well. So when you interlock something, you need at least two shapes, and they need a way to connect, a way to kind of join together. So I'm going to have two rectangles. I'm just going to copy this one and make it a different color so we can see it as well. And what we want is the idea that one part of one shape is on the top, and then the other part of the shape is on the bottom. So that's the idea that they're going to essentially lock together. So it's a super easy thing to do. But there are a couple steps that if you don't do them in the right order, they tend to get just a little bit kind of confused. So you have your shapes, and what you're going to do is select them both, and then go to Object, Path, and Outline Stroke. So you'll see what happens. So before we outline stroke, we have the stroke in the center, and then the color kind of bleeds on either side of the stroke itself. So when we go to Object, Path, Object, Path, Outline Stroke. I'm sorry, I had a moment of disillusionment as to what I was doing. Object, Path, Outline Stroke. You'll see that it actually does just that. It outlines the stroke. So this becomes like essentially its own shape. So it opens it up so that the color of the stroke can kind of fluidly cover that whole area. It's no longer constrained by the line, but it becomes the square. So Object, Path, Outline, Stroke. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is actually get your Pathfinder tool or Pathfinder panel involved. So we're going to go up here to Window and Pathfinder. And basically what Pathfinder does is a lot like what the Shaper tool does. So you can unite things to create a compound shape. You can put one thing in front of the other. You can intersect. You can exclude. So this is with the shapes. Then with the paths, you can divide, trim, merge, crop, outline, minus back. What we're actually going to do is this first one, which is divide. And so what this is going to do is it's going to take every spot where the shapes are overlapping each other, kind of placed on top of each other, and turn that into its own shape. And then we're going to kind of go from there. So divide takes, so we're going to have, we start out with 2 rectangles. Suddenly we're going to have 4 because these little guys are going to become their own rectangles. So we're going to click on it, and it looks like basically nothing has happened. But once we click our direct selection tool, you can see suddenly that you've just got anchor points and live shape indicators everywhere, because each of these things have become their own shape. So, oops. So what we're going to do first is go to Object and Ungroup, because we want to be able to target these little things here. And so we want to target these overlaps especially. So click on it and take our eyedropper tool and just take a little sample of the color that's around it and turn that box that color, and suddenly, like magic, we have something that's been created using an interlock. So we could, if you want to, just delete that, and that kind of looks cool as well because it's a white. But you know what matters is that they're two shapes kind of together. So once you create that, if you want to, add to it, add another guy, totally fine. We're going to change the color on that one. I turned up the stroke mostly because it's just easier to see with the stroke. So you don't have to keep it a big stroke if you don't want to, but that's just why I did that. And we could, if we wanted to be fancy, do I dare try to change an anchor point? Yeah, love when it works. So you could use the live shape functionality. Again, remember Object, Path, Outline, Stroke, and then you want to select the 2 and do Divide, and then Object, Ungroup, and then get these little the little spot where it's an overlap, and just put it to the color of the thing that surrounds it. And we can add one more interlock, put a circle in there. Looks like I'm running a little bit out of space, but that's okay. Let's make this blue. Dial up the size, we'll make this guy really chunky. And then remember Object, Path, Outline, Stroke, then Select, then Divide, and then Ungroup, and then grab this thing, I for eyedropper, and then bring something together. And then you still have this one too, so you could delete that. You could kind of be a little bit crazy and just change the color of it, which is kind of cool as well. Ooh, I actually really like that. It looks like it's like tone on tone type thing. So that is creating interlocking shapes. So if you want to create a complex shape with your the shaper tool, oops, forgot I was drawing something. So like, let's say you have, this guy, and you've turned it into a complex shape. And then you want to shaper tool, or I'm sorry, then you want to create this so that, maybe you have 2 of them. Maybe you have 2 of them and you want them to interlock. It's pretty much the same process, but the only thing you have to be aware of is that you have to, they're going to interlock, I guess they're going to have to be together. You're going to have to pretend they like each other. You have to go to Object and Expand, and then expand the object. And so the reason that you have to do that is because if you try just to put these 2 on top of each other without doing Expand, and you hit the Divide, it's not going to let you do anything. So you need all the shapes to get essentially baked together, and then once they do that, once they become not editable anymore, then you can divide, and then, you know, you can take, well, you still have to ungroup as well. So ungroup, and then you can change that if you want to. But I guess that didn't really make any difference because they're both the same color. But let's retroactively make them different colors. So let's say this guy is going to get this color. Make this pink. And you may say, well, it doesn't really matter because they're just laid on top of each other, and they are, because I didn't do a good job creating a demo for that. But we won't go back in because it's already getting a little bit late. But the important thing to know is, when you try to if you try to interlock shapes that have been created complex, just remember to go to Object and Expand, because that essentially bakes the shape together, and that will allow you then to do the divide. So good thing to know. Okay, so that is the interlock. Interlock in a nutshell, and super easy. Just the thing, the two things you have to remember, which could, you know, if you don't remember them, it can get very frustrating, is just make sure object path outline stroke. So you want to do that. And then also divide, and then object ungroup. So once you do those three things, you should be pretty golden with whatever you're interlocking. Okay, so let's talk patterning now. So kind of the way that I'm thinking this is going to go, as far as, you know, when the next break is. I think we're going to talk patterning. And then I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to just play, and then we're going to come back and just recap everything, and that should probably take us to the end of the session. So Illustrator has a really great feature called the pattern making tool, and where you can find that is under Object, Pattern, Make. And so basically, you put together shapes, you put together symbols, you put together whatevers, and then you select them all, and then just come to Object, Pattern, Make, and then you're going to get a little notification that it's going to put your pattern in the swatches panel, which is exactly what you want. And then you click OK, and it should give you something cool. Wow, I don't know what this is that's going on, why it's so tiny, but in theory, it should give you something cool. So here it is. Okay, so basically how it works is that when you go to Object, Pattern, Make, there it is. It's going to give you this pattern window, and then pattern window with your pattern options, and then you can kind of distribute elements of your pattern within the window, and Illustrator does a live preview of what your pattern is going to look like. So you can see right now, here's my shapes that I can edit in here if I want to, and then this is, you know, how it's all going to look repeating. So this actually worked really well the first time. Generally, it doesn't work very well the first time, and you have to kind of finesse it, but this one did, so yay. But I'm still going to finesse it so you guys know what to do. So first thing, give your pattern a name. So I'm going to do interlock, and then you can see here it says tile type. So right now this is a grid. You could do brick if you want to, and then adjust the spacing of it. So if you want it to really have a strong overlap, it might be kind of cool if you want to cut off bits and pieces of it. You know, that might be kind of cool. So just kind of play with it. So that's brick by row, and then you can play with the offset again just to see what it looks like. And I would encourage you guys, as you're doing this, you know, just look at everything, because you never really know what that's kind of what the offset's doing. You never know what it's going to look like until you see it. And so there's, you can generally think, you know, bricks are going to be staggered, grid is going to be even columns. But, you know, knowing that in your head versus knowing how that actually looks, kind of two different things. So, you know, kind of play around and check your bounding and check your sizing and such. So how you move around this little thing is you have to just click this. I guess it's the pattern tile tool. So you have to click that, and then you'll see the anchor points, and then you can kind of, you know, shift as you want to. So that's brick by column. Hex by column gives it kind of a hexagonal arrangement. So you can see what's going to happen. That's kind of cool. Hex by row. So it kind of walks through. Copies if you want to see more. Let's zoom out. Right now I'm 5 by 5. It could be 5 by 7. It could be 1 by 3. I think more is actually always more for this because you want to see it big, just to see how it's going to replicate itself. And then the other thing too is that I have my dim copies set to 100%. I think default it's like that. So they show you what you can manipulate, and that's like the in full color. Yeah, I like it where they give you, where you can see everything in full color, just because then I know what the pattern's going to look like more, but you know, that's completely up to you. Okay, so I think I actually like, I think I still like grid. Stick with a winner with this. Okay, so when you have your piece, and if you want to, you know, if you want to change your shapes up, just turn off your pattern tile adjuster, and then you can grab your shape in there, and you can, you know, shrink it down if you want to. Ooh, that's kind of cool. I actually just created an L because I forgot that it was, I forgot it was an interlock that, oops, wasn't there. Ooh, but I kind of actually like that even more. Ooh, that changed its orientation. Huh. Wow. I like it. Okay, so this is again examples why you never know what's going to happen. You can change color if you want to, but you got to play and you got to see what, see kind of how it's gonna set up, how it's gonna work. Okay, so when you have something you like, I'll stop here because you don't want to just watch me play. Just click on done, and it's going to save it. And hey, it's gone. But where it's going to save it actually is to your swatches panel, which, do I have mine? Oh yeah, here it is. And so you'll see now I have interlock as a swatch. And then what I'm going to do is not get rid of those yet because I really like that shape combo. But then I'm just going to drag a rectangle and fill it with my interlock. And you'll see there's my pattern. Oh, so cool. And this could be used on a box. This could be used on tissue paper. This could be used on a bag, what have you. A couple cool things. If you get your pattern out and you're like, I kind of don't like it, you can always just double click on your swatch and then come back in here and adjust, you know, again, and just click done, and it will update anything that you want. The other thing you can do too is select your rectangle and then go to object, edit. No, you want to go to transform. Where is, oh, here it is, right there. Whew. Edit, transform, and scale. And then usually we scale a shape, but what we want to do is just scale the pattern. So unclick transform object, just click transform pattern, and you could do like 50%, see how that looks. So it's going to super shrink down your pattern. So that's kind of an option. If you want to just see it at a larger scale, put it in something bigger. So those are all ways to just kind of manipulate how your pattern is showing up. And so again, to do that, select your shape, object transform, object transform scale. Make sure transform objects is unchecked. Make sure transform patterns is checked. And then you can click your preview button and see what that looks like. wonder if you hit copy, what would happen? Oh, ooh, that's kind of wild. It's like the pattern on the pattern. Wow, that's a little too much to look at. But another option you can do, and another thing you can kind of play with. So creating a pattern, again, you have your shapes, whatever they are, and you can pattern with literally anything. You just want to make sure it's all selected, and then object, pattern, make, and then you get to say okay, and then you get to go from there and really consider what it is you're making. And I don't know why mine gets so weird at the beginning, but yours too gets weird. Just click your pattern tile box and just extend the box it's pulling from, and you'll probably end up with something that's a lot better. Wow, that's really cool too. Interlock 2. Save that one and add that to the list of stuff. Okay. All right, so that is interlocking shapes using the Pathfinder, as well as patterning using the pattern maker capability. So just as we've done before, we're going to take about 5-ish minutes and just practice, give it a go. If there's anything that you're feeling confused on, if there's anything that's not working for you, if there's anything that you're frustrated with, just let me know, and I will be happy to just kind of check in with you and help as I can. So 5 more minutes, and then we're going to come back, probably wrap things up. All right, so it looks like our practice time is up again. So yeah, so hopefully you found that to be a good experience, and it was kind of working out. So you could play, interlock, pattern, do all that kind of stuff. So as usual, if you guys had any questions about anything, you can feel free to let me know, and I will. Yeah, I'll try to get back to you. A couple of things that might be a little bit confusing, I am envisioning, is that the definition of interlock and kind of what that is, what you will be graded on, what I will be looking for, all of that. So basically, I want to see that you guys can create something that could potentially have an interlock. But if you see here, I did not take two of these and interlock them together. This thing in itself has an interlock already in it. So if you do something like that, I'm kind of okay with that. Basically, I don't want you to make a symbol that's just like a one thing. I want you to be thinking a little bit larger, a little bit more holistically about what it could be. And so that's the idea, that's the thinking behind this idea that it could lock up as something else. So ideally, what you're creating for this, for your symbol is, something that's, let me use my pencil tool, something that's like a, well, this is not going to go anywhere. It's such a good demo. I should probably stop while I'm ahead. But yeah, so kind of like a wafty steam thing for your, if you're doing steep. And then you take those two like kind of abstract cloud pieces and you can link them together and then take that link and turn it into a pattern. Some things interlock better than others, and some things also pattern better than others. So if you have a really good, really cool symbol, but it's not quite as open to an interlock, it's actually okay with me. I would rather have you get a really high quality symbol than for you to kind of force a cool symbol into something because you want to have it kind of interlock with something else. So I'm willing to be open. I'm willing to be flexible. But I do care that I see your symbol in a pattern format. And I do kind of care about, I care about the quality of the symbol that you're creating. So, put time, put energy, put thought into that. And, try for an interlock. But if it just isn't a great fit, that's okay. Like we can kind of be flexible with that. So hopefully that kind of clears things up. The other thing too is that if you have any questions as you're working on this, you can always send me some work in progress. I'd be happy to check it out, take it in, give you feedback, anything like that as well. So kind of keep me posted, and I can give you thoughts and things as you're going through. So kind of keep that in mind. All right. Well, I think that we are just about finished with things. Thank you again, students who are here. Always great to have you, have some feedback and things. And for those of you who couldn't join us, we did miss you, but I completely understand. And know that you are still very much part of the classroom, part of the teaching process. And that, part of that is you just, letting me know if anything's amiss or anything's not working. And I can, help you out in that way. All right. Well, I guess with that, we will close up another week. And I will look forward to seeing you all in week 4 when we wrap everything up, put these subscription boxes together, and hopefully celebrate that everybody's got a pretty phenomenal portfolio piece that they can add to their Behance. All right. Well, take care, guys. Have a good rest of the day, whatever day it might be for you.